Hello, and welcome to this presentation on the hierarchy of evidence. In this presentation, I'll briefly explain what the hierarchy is and what it's used for. Next, I'll discuss how the hierarchy divides studies based on the methodological rigor of the study, or in other words, how well the study controls for confounding variables and bias. Finally, I'll discuss some of the limitations of the hierarchy. The hierarchy of evidence was developed as part of the evidence-based medicine movement to provide practicing physicians, researchers, and other health practitioners a tool or framework to weigh the value of empirical results presented in research studies. As you will likely see in looking for sources for your paper, there are numerous published studies on a variety of sources in the health sciences, and sometimes studies appear to reach contradictory results. The hierarchy can be a helpful way to identify which studies were conducted with the most methodological rigor. The concept of methodological rigor refers to the extent to which a study can control for confounding variables or bias. Simply put, confounding variables, or just confounders, are anything outside the variables being investigated that may impact the results of the study. As such, confounders could be called the nemesis of good researchers. In the TED Talk you were assigned to watch, Ben Goldacre gave a good example of confounders in research purporting to find that eating olive oil with fruits and vegetables protects you from getting skin wrinkles. Well, as Ben Goldacre explains, the people in the study who ate a lot of olive oil tended to be wealthier, did not work in manual labor or other jobs that required them to be outside in the sun a lot, and were less likely to smoke. So it was these demographic variables that led to less skin wrinkles, not the consumption of olive oil. So the demographic variables were confounders. The more rigorous the methods used in the study, the better it controls for confounders, and the higher the study is on the hierarchy. So here you see the hierarchy of evidence. And so the most rigorous study designs are at the top, and at the bottom we have purely anecdotal, I heard somewhere, kind of gossip type uh, information, which is not even really empirical evidence. So now that we have this hierarchy, shouldn't health practitioners always demand the top-level empirical support provided by systematic reviews or meta-analyses of 2 or more randomized controlled trials in making clinical decisions? And shouldn't researchers only conduct those types of top-level studies? Well, the answer is no, for several reasons. For some important research problems, a randomized controlled trial would be unethical or impractical to conduct. Let's say, for example, a group of researchers would like to investigate the short and long-term health consequences of smoking during pregnancy. Well, the most rigorous way to conduct this study would be to randomly select a relatively large sample of newly pregnant women. And then you divide these women into 2 groups, one where they're told to smoke 2 packs a day, and another where they're told not to smoke during pregnancy. And then you could track the health of the mothers and children over the course of several decades. But if designing a study that forces women to smoke while pregnancy doesn't raise some real ethical red flags for you, I might recommend that you select a different major. The health field is probably not for you. Additionally, with such a study design, you would have to conduct a study for several decades to get your long-term results, and waiting this long may not be feasible. But this is an important research problem. So an alternative, less rigorous design would be to use health records to compare women who smoked during pregnancy and those who did not. Of course, it would be very difficult to eliminate all potential confounders, but with large samples and good statistical analysis that controls for a range of potential confounders, such as demographic and age differences, with other supporting research, with other support, such research could be used to identify causal relationships between smoking during pregnancy and health outcomes. And so, as you begin looking for sources to analyze and to include in your papers, you should be asking yourself both where on the hierarchy a study falls and also whether more rigorous research higher up on the hierarchy is feasible for the study topic. In other words, critically evaluate the studies you review and identify the limitations on their findings, but do so with a bit of caution. I think the authors of another textbook on research methods put it best as follows. Although it is easy to say that the literature should be critiqued, to actually critique the literature can be difficult. Students typically have limited knowledge of sample size, sample selection, instrument quality, and research design. Often students are writing their literature review while they are still enrolled in their research methods class or classes. Sound familiar? Students might, for example, see lack of randomization as a fatal flaw in a study when in reality the study could only be done using intact groups. And this technique has been used and accepted by the profession in previous research. The point here is that students should provide analysis and critique of the literature, but to use caution and reason when doing so. So as you do this, I hope that you find the hierarchy of evidence to be a helpful tool. Thank you for your time.